The strongest earthquake in 140 years, John.
Look at all that. And it's not over yet because we've got the Eclipse earthquake coming up on Monday. As Deborah Ross was telling us, it's going to be a transformative experience for anybody who was in the area of totality. It's not over yet because we've got the Eclipse earthquake coming up on Monday. It's not over yet because we've got the Eclipse earthquake coming up on Monday.
This is the Rebel Call Channel. Welcome to today's show. Is that a Freudian slip, or is it just an old man slipping the tongue because he doesn't know what's going on? Well, we'll find out come Monday, because apparently it's not over yet. Apparently, if you're in the line of totality, there's a chance that you're going to be in the line for an earthquake eclipse. Now, of course, that could just be an accidental slip, but the way that he went on in that sentence made you think that there was a lot more to it, because it wasn't just a slip. It was a whole 20-second clip of him talking about how there's more to come. And it's going to be quite the transformative experience. Of course, transformation is one of the big words we always hear in the New World Order. Transform, rebirth, regrowth, balance. A lot of those words are floating around with the eclipse. And again, there's a lot of theories out there about things potentially going on during the eclipse, but I think one of the things that we have to keep our eye on is a simulated event. In other words, if they decide to simulate an earthquake, and by simulate, I mean create an earthquake using their earthquake machine that I've covered many times that they do have the ability to do. Anybody can look it up. All these people drive around in their Tesla mobiles and they don't even realize the origins of Tesla. They're like, is Elon Musk Tesla? Is he the guy behind, is his middle name Tesla? They don't even have a clue about Tesla and the origins of Tesla. And of course, weather modification, weather manipulation, and the earthquake machine. All things that are patent, that exist, that you can look up for yourself, that nobody can deny the existence of. It's just a matter of what you want to believe. And if you're willing to believe that these people who are in positions of power are actually going to use this type of weaponized weather against their civilians. They've already proven that they are doing that. So there's theories out there about a potential simulated man-made earthquake during the eclipse. Of course, this could be done as a way to manipulate and deceive Christians, to convince them into something that they want to convince them into. Again, whether it's a herding mechanism, whether it's people falling for rapture theories, there's a lot that's at play. But one of the things I want to cover, in addition to the ability to create an earthquake, to simulate some type of what some will perceive as a biblical event during the eclipse, to the actual eclipse itself, because there's a lot of people out there that think the eclipse itself is something that they're manipulating and that they control. Now, there's other people out there that would say that's completely crazy. Well, we have to be open to all sorts of theories when it comes to this stuff, because they do have the ability to block out the sun. They do have the artificial sun that they have launched in China, and nobody thinks anything more than that. They're just like, oh, they have an artificial sun. What does that mean? Well, somebody's making an artificial sun, and we have people who can create earthquakes. They can obviously manipulate a lot of these events, and a lot of people can be deceived into thinking some of these things are biblical when in fact they could be manufactured. So when we see the picture that they keep showing us of what an eclipse looks like, right? They show us the earth, the circular, the globe earth. Then they show us what comes out of it and how the sun gets shielded by it and how the actual eclipse happens. But it also, if you look at this symbol, it looks exactly like the sigil of Lucifer. And it's important for people out there to know that, right? Look at that symbol, the sigil of Lucifer, which I've exposed many times over, which I'll get into the meaning of it in a minute. And you can see that this matches up to a T. You'll also notice in the sigil of Lucifer at the bottom, you can see the V at the bottom, and you can see the compass. So you can see the Freemasons' affiliation with the sigil of Lucifer. Now, it's no secret that the god that Freemasons worship is Lucifer, right? Well, there's so much doctrine out there, from Albert Pike talking about Lucifer, the light bearer, the one that they worship, to even Luciferianism or Satanism, essays inside of Freemasonry, inside of a lot of their texts, that literally just pretty much openly talk about Freemasonry and how the God of this world is the one that's revealed to them. Many times throughout history, there's been many things that have come out that have been alleged hoaxes. They've called hoaxes, where people have addressed Albert Pike and how Freemasons really worship Lucifer. There's the Leo Taxil theory, where, of course, it's just one of those things that happens where people start exposing these people, and then they make propaganda to make it sound like it's a witch hunt. The stuff I expose all the time, right? They come out and they go, oh, this thing, the libel that these guys talk about, there's no truth to it. They just made it up out of thin air. Don't ask any questions and believe what we say. They do the same thing anytime Freemasonry is actually exposed. So the sigil of Lucifer appears as a chalice which represents creation, the fertile darkness awaiting and ready for untold possibilities. The purpose of it is that an instrument of visual invocation during ritual. By performing the appropriate ritual, the sigil acts as a gateway to invoke and bestow the power and presence of Lucifer. So we're talking about invocation. The sigil itself being a visual invocation during a ritual to invoke and bring about demonic entities, right? Or as they'll call them, just spirits, but the power and presence of Lucifer, specifically with the sigil of Lucifer. So when the sigil of Lucifer lines up, of course, with the way that the eclipse is supposed to mirror and cover the sun and black out the sun, we need to look at these things as not just spiritual war, but as deceptions that they're using to manipulate and bring about massive invocations of spirits, right? So in addition to that coincidence, of course, with the sigil of Lucifer and what we're shown the eclipse looks like, and again, you can look at it with your own eyes and you can see how it matches up, how the sigil actually matches that, right? Then we hear and see throughout Freemasonry, the ones who worship Lucifer, how important the eclipse is to them, how important the sun and the moon and the alignment of the two actually create what they call a marriage between the sun and the moon, which creates a rebirth and ultimately leads to a balance and a rebalance. Balance is key. Balance and duality, these are things as above, so below, that Baphomet doctrine that they all follow, right? So there's a very good chance that they could create some type of a simulated event during this. There's a lot of possibilities. And again, I've talked about openly what I believe is going to be a massive, massive spiritual attack during this time period, that they're going to be summoning something, and we probably won't see it with our own eyes. But when you hear that first clip, it certainly makes you think. When a guy's on TV and he goes, well, it's not over yet after an earthquake hits New York and New Jersey, he says it's not over yet because we still have the earthquake eclipse and the eclipse of the earthquake, and how there's going to be a transformation occurring for anybody who's in the line of totality, right? That's a little bit frightening if you think about it, that they're saying that openly on TV. Now, you can look at it and you can say, well, he might have just misspoke, or was it a Freudian slip? You tell me when you hear that stuff. But when we look at the actual signs and symbols that surround the eclipse, we know that a massive invocation is going to occur, because it's not just the Lucifer sigil that we see. What else do we see? We see that specific date and that invocation that Aleister Crowley did, summoning Horus, right? Horus, the all-seeing eye of Horus. Horus, Lucifer, right? So there's a lot of things spiritually going on here with CERN as well being churned up. But don't think for 1 second that they can't try to mimic and recreate, or try to mimic and create a false event surrounding this to deceive Christians. There's other stories out there from the New York Post. Solar Eclipse 2024 Rituals. An exorcist reveals how to balance energy and clear the way for change, right? So openly, we have a lot of mainstream media outlets, again, talking about witchcraft and sorcery, something that I always get told is just made up, right? I cover it all the time, and they go, oh, this guy's a nut job. He believes this stuff is real, even though they show it to us day in and day out. Then when time periods like this come along, and they, whether it's an eclipse or a blood moon, there's all these stories out there about, what can you do to summon energy and summon spirits and bring about positivity? And nobody realizes that they're just getting you to practice witchcraft and sorcery without telling you that's what you're doing. You're like, oh yeah, well, I could bring about change, right? Listen to this article talking about some of the stuff that's going to be going on during the eclipse. Darkness cometh. On Monday, April 8th, we will experience a total eclipse in the fire forward, progress at all costs sign of Aries. A large portion of the United States will fall within or close to the path of totality, meaning many will witness this visual phenomenon, and all among us will feel its effects. Acclaimed exorcist author and energy specialist Rachel Stavis is on hand to explain how to navigate in the dark and to find a path forward within it. She says everything begins right now. So let's harness this energy and notice where we are, stagnant, and clear anything that holds us back, right? This is like new age witchcraft talk. So for anyone to say that they're an exorcist And they, talking about spirituality, they're literally leading you towards witchcraft, right? Harnessing energy, things like that. Christians fall for this new age deception all the time. So it says, fun fact, the word eclipse comes from the Greek word meaning to abandon, to forsake a usual place. In this sense, we can understand the energy of this eclipse as a point of disembarkment, leaving behind anything that isn't aiding and abetting us on the path of processing and progressing. The first step in cutting loose the stagnant and welcoming the fresh blood of new beginnings is to recognize the role of light and dark within and around us. The author, Stavis, the person, the exorcist, says in her book, Sister of Darkness, it is being adapted into a television series, and she explains, during the eclipse, the sun and moon align, representing a symbolic balance of opposing dark and light forces, inopportune time to find balance within ourselves. Oftentimes, we find our darkness uncomfortable and avoid it, but to be whole, we need to see it, accept it, and understand how it serves us. So they're talking about light energy and dark energy. This is straight up witchcraft. Okay? And it's really just, it's comical, right? That we have somebody who's writing a book about exorcisms who literally they show us a picture of the person. You could tell the person's a witch. They got a pentagram right behind their head. So they're not really giving exorcisms. They're actually causing people to fall under demonic possession. This is the world we're living. This is how upside down it is. Where they're giving platforms to people like this witch who claims to be an author, has 25,000 followers, who of course is not censored. And they're out there talking about, these are things that we could do. I'm going to give exorcism so people think that she's a Christian. She's going to make sure, keep exorcism. It's a sister of, okay. And then she's talking openly about light energy, dark energy with a pentagram behind her head, right? So clearly this time period with the Aleister Crowley, with the invocation, with the Book of the Law, with the summoning of Horus, with the way that this lines up, of course, with Freemasonry and the eclipse and how the sigil of Lucifer lines up. And don't forget about the devil comet, which I might do a video on separately, that's occurring at the same time as all this stuff is going on. Not to mention the fact that it's supposedly happening, the totality at 322, which is a very significant number to the occult, right? And then on top of those things, you got NASA firing 3 rockets into the eclipse, which pretty much tells us they're trying to open a portal while CERN has been turned on conveniently, right? This is spiritual warfare at its finest. So what we need to keep an eye on during this isn't just the obvious signs, right? It's any type of potential false flag, because they can use something like this. And that's what I was talking about in my previous video, for Christians to be careful, because they can manipulate. And they can manipulate signs and wonders, right? So can the Antichrist. So they could make things and do things that people think they don't have the ability to do. When I talk about being able to block out the sun, they have the ability to black out the sun already. I've covered this for years, right? Some people are like, you mean that thing like in The Simpsons, the predictive programming you saw in The Simpsons where Mr. Burns blocks out the sun? Yeah, exactly like that. Because you can look at every single mad scientist out there like Bill Gates who have their hands in everything chaotic going on in the world, and they're all funding, Bezos included, a way to block out the sun to reduce carbon emissions, and people just go, oh, okay. So, and we see China with the artificial sun. So they have the ability to mimic and mirror these events if they want to deceive people. And that's what we have to keep an eye on. Because any type of earthquake that happens during the eclipse, okay, I know everyone out there is going to run and say it's spiritual, but the devil deceives. He manipulates. And when that guy is sitting there on national television and he's doing a fraudulent slip like that, it's worth paying attention to. It's worth paying attention to, because if anything does occur, if any type of massive quake does occur, watch the people like Trump, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, a lot of these people who are deliberately trying to deceive and mislead Christians into thinking it's a biblical event, and then watch what that leads to. Watch what they tell their flocks, where to go, how to think, what's coming next, because there's a lot of deceptions that are going to be going on around this. But again, no matter what anyone says, no matter whatever actually occurs, whether there's some of the other stuff I've covered about our government coming out and saying there could be, watch out for large gatherings at the eclipse for ISIS and all this other stuff, keep an eye on and stay prayed up. Because I guarantee you, at the very least, it's a 100% lock that massive rituals are going to be occurring during this. Massive ones. Massive invocations, massive attempts to summon forward the things that are behind the veil and bring them into this realm. And that is what this is all about. And sometimes there's things that we can't see with our own eyes. We can't see right in front of us, right? Stuff I talk about, right? Things you can't see with your own eyes. We're talking about frequencies, 5G, a lot of this stuff, and nobody believes it's really going on. The same with the spiritual realm. They literally think that it's going to take like a scene out of Ghostbusters for them to believe that demonic entities have been summoned and brought forward. They're expecting, to look up at the Empire State Building. They'll need to see the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and Slimer to believe that we're in spiritual war. But that's not the case. That's not the case. So there's a lot of things going on here. When I saw this guy give that fraudulent slip like that, it's just absolutely incredible that they say that stuff and they use words, because I've done so many videos talking about the word transformation. Rihanna, Beyonce, the anti-diary thing that Rihanna did. And the word transformation is so important to the occult. Transformation, because that's actually what's going on. We hear words about transhumanism. There is a transformation occurring. They are trying to transform humans into a new species of humans. And we're already in the middle of that. So when they talk about transformative time period, they're also talking about transformation of this physical realm that we're in and the summoning of things that are supposed to be covered behind a veil. They want to lift that veil and bring them over here. So just to recap some of the stuff out there, we have mainstream media covering articles about rituals occurring during the eclipse, right? And these are things I'll continue to cover. We have the actual visual that they're giving us in the mainstream of what an eclipse looks like, how this whole thing works, because they want to break down the science. And you can see exactly how it looks like sideways, the sigil of Lucifer, right? And Freemasons tie into this because the Freemasons, the secret societies, they worship Lucifer. That's who they really worship. And of course, the eclipse is so significant to these secret societies. The sublime balance that they speak about, the spiritual rebirth that they always talk about. There's a lot of things that are going to be in play here. So keep an eye all around you at the stuff going on and don't fall for deceptions, because there's going to be many that arise. I thank you for being here. Hope you're all doing well. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I needed to rant about this. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.